what I'm passionate about now is really making sure that the businesses that I'm in and the businesses around us have people that maintain that entrepreneurial spirit from within, and then are able to sort of bring those businesses back to what they started as. And I think that helps the people in the business, but also helps the businesses. So, to create that environment is really what's motivating me now. And that's really two really simple things: just motivating people to perform at their absolute best, but also to create that environment within a business that celebrates that entrepreneurial spirit and doesn't crush it.
My guest today is Dexter Clarke, an entrepreneur and Chief Financial Officer. His current gig is CFO at MotorServe, a business aiming at providing a one-stop shop for customers, including mechanical repairs and car servicing. Dexter is also the founder of ISLO Hire, a bespoke coaching community for entrepreneurs. His career spans over 20 years globally. His mission and expertise is building world-class teams and businesses. Dexter is also a runner, is a father, a husband, and all-round fantastic at marketing and other random things not usually associated with accountants.
Hi, I'm Dexter Clarke. I'm the CFO at MotorServe. Join us on the Accountants on Purpose podcast.
Hi, I'm Sarah Bartholomeusz from YouLegal. The Accountants on Purpose podcast showcases inspiring accountants who are leaders in their field.
And then it just came to me like a bolt of blue.
What makes them tick?
Love it.
How did they get to where they are? I want to inspire. And what do they do now for their teams, their clients, and the world? Are you looking to make a difference in your accounting career? Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand have designed a new program to offer greater learning flexibility, allowing candidates to balance work and study efficiently. The new CA program offers authentic assessments based on real-world scenarios that integrate technical and professional capabilities and impactful learning through a blend of digital and face-to-face options. Learn more, search New CA Program today. What kind of books do you enjoy reading?
I've got a very eclectic mix of books that I like. The recent ones have been, strangely enough, about running and food and a bit of both. The one that I've read just the most, and I know you're a runner too, Sarah, so I recommend this one. It's called Finding Ultra by a guy called Rich Roll.
I don't think I'm ever going to find Ultra.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, read that one and you might be inspired, right? Because this was a guy who was a swimming champion, then ended up doing drugs and alcohol at college and dropping out, and is now one of the best ultra marathon runners in the world.
Wow.
And it's an amazing story. And,
okay.
and I got a lot of motivation out of it. That's a good one. Bit of travel stuff, been reading a lot of Leveson Wood books or listening to a lot of Leveson Wood books, because it's much easier to listen to audio books when you're out running for 3 hours than it is carrying a paperback around.
That would be dangerous.
So it's all fun stuff at the moment for me.
Oh, that's good. Do you have a favourite car?
I do. My 1972 Mini is my favourite car. It needs a lot of work, but it's still my favourite. I thought about selling it just recently when my father asked me to get it out of his garage, and then I refused to do it. So it's still in his garage, still needs a lot of work. But probably aspirationally, 911s, Porsche is definitely a favourite. And I'm getting I'm more and more excited about EVs all the time. And as you know, I had a bit to do with Tesla early in their life, and it's just so exciting what's happening in that market.
It's true.
So, maybe the Mini. No, the Mini will never get retired, but maybe a Porsche will get overlooked for something a little bit more
environmentally friendly. There's got to be more charging stations, I think, soon that will make that a lot more attractive. I heard Tesla next year is bringing out a family car at a family car price. So I'm hanging out for that.
We'll see. We'll see what Tesla's definition of a family car price is, eh?
Yes, watch this space. What's something most people don't know about you?
Most people don't know that I'm a gardener. Mainly a veggie gardener.
Yes.
So,
how's the veggie garden looking right now?
It's that time of the year where it starts to get exciting, right? Because things are starting to go in. It's been a bit fallow over winter, so it's kind of the fun time of the year. It's also the busy time of the year, but there's still a few things from winter coming through, and it's just so exciting, to see it come up, and I get really excited because putting a meal on the table, which is 100% grown in your garden, it's just really satisfying, and the kids love it. So it's something I think that I can probably do until I die, right? Like running marathons, I might not be able to do forever, but pottering around in the garden is certainly something that will last.
Definitely, if my mother-in-law is anything to go by. You have many years of experience being a CFO, and you call yourself an entrepreneur. What drives your passion to be innovative within the organisations that you've worked for?
A lot of it comes from the many years part of that, I guess, which is, I've seen a lot of different businesses do things in different ways. Both the businesses I work for and the partners we've worked with, and so many businesses just keep on doing the same thing over and over again, and expecting a different result, right? And it's a bit of a cliche, but it's kind of true. But so many people get locked into that pattern. And lots of those businesses start as being very innovative and entrepreneurial sometimes, right? Especially now, but they lose it as they grow, and they become bogged down, and the processes and systems and the governance all start to weigh down on them. And a lot of them struggle to find that again. And what I'm passionate about now is really making sure that the businesses I'm in and the businesses around us have people that maintain that entrepreneurial spirit from within, and then are able to sort of bring those businesses back to what they started as. And I think that helps the people in the business, but also helps the businesses. So, to create that environment is really what's motivating me now. And that's really two really simple things: just motivating people to perform at their absolute best, but also to create that environment within a business that celebrates that entrepreneurial spirit and doesn't crush it with governance, and doesn't crush it with process.
It does crush you. Do you know, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I worked at ABB Grain when there was a drought, and it was quite a crisis. Like, the business really did require rain to be successful. And so I had this idea that we should get all the staff and create this PR thing where we would do a rain dance with some Indigenous people leading us, because they had a rain dance. Anyway, I was so pumped about it, but I got crushed. It would have been such a fun thing to do. And anyway, it never happened. But I really identify with what you said about you can crush it, and then once it's crushed, it's hard to get it back.
Yeah. Everybody gets real serious, right? As soon as you've got shareholders and boards and stakeholders, it all gets really serious. And people forget that, quite often they went into business because they wanted to do something differently, and they wanted to have some fun. And they forget about that, and it all becomes a bit too serious. And if you take everything serious, then people just aren't attracted to you for the same reason in terms of your product and being part of your team.
Yeah, so, culture.
Correct. Yeah, that's the one. That HR thing.
Have you ever learned a lesson the hard way? If yes, what was it?
Yeah, so probably the biggest lesson I learned, and it was hard, was humility, right? The story kind of goes that I thought I was up for a particular promotion in one of the businesses I worked for. I considered the role to be mine. We went through the process. I didn't get the job, and I was told I wasn't ready. At that stage, I didn't agree with that. Fortunately, I stayed in the business, and a few years later, I did step into that role. And that's really where I learned that actually, I wasn't ready at the time. I was ready when I stepped into the role, and that actually meant that I was able to really do that job properly at the time. So, it sort of made me reconsider rule number one, which was Dexter's always right, to Dexter's not always right.
Yeah, but it was such a blessing, I suppose, that you stayed with the business to be able to see that through. Because if you had thought, well, I'm going to show you, and gone out and got that role in another organisation that maybe you weren't ready for, you never would have had that insight. You just might have got crushed at the next role for not being ready for it and thinking you were.
And another part of that lesson is that it wasn't really my decision, because, of course, my first instinct was exactly that, well, I'm going to show you sort of thing. The leader of that organisation was particularly insightful, and he knew what was coming. So he pulled me aside and said, well, you didn't get the job you want, so what do you want to do? And actually gave me the opportunity to step away from finance for a little while and do some other things. And those other things were partly what made me ready for that role, that when I did take it, but also just dramatically improved my business acumen beyond what I would have had it just staying in pure finance. So, a really valuable lesson, but also really valuable for me, professionally and personally.
How do you juggle everything and maintain balance in your life?
So I've kind of given up on work-life balance. I think that's a misnomer. I've sort of signed up to the school of work-life integration. And to me, that means that you do the things you want to do, the things you enjoy doing, and work has to be something you enjoy doing. Otherwise, it is just a job, right? And then you have to balance it. But if you enjoy what you do, you can just integrate it into your life. So, to me, that's been the biggest change that I've made. And part of that is, making sure the people you work with know that as well. I'm very happy to say that on my performance and development plan for this next year, one of my key objectives is to improve my barrel riding in the surf. It's the first time I've ever had that as an official goal, but I think that sort of highlights the way I'm thinking about these things. That I'm happy to work very, very hard, but we also have to find the time to do the things that are good for the soul as well. So that's one of the things that's become really important to me.
That's awesome. Do you have a routine that helps keep you motivated?
I am an organisation person. I think there's a little bit of OCD somewhere buried there. So, I've got a very set routine. I run in the mornings before I do anything. If I'm not running, then it's yoga to help try and keep me running. Once I do that and I come home, generally the family's up. So, I try to make sure I check in with the kids, make sure that they've sort of got a positive mindset for the day ahead of them, which is more challenging than others sometimes, but all good fun.
Teenagers.
Yeah, teenagers. And then really it's about starting to think about the day. I'm a list person, so I'll check the lists that I've got to make sure I'm on track with what I want to do for the day. That happens before I even open email. That's not the first thing I do every day anymore. It certainly was for a long time. And then once I'm at my desk, I go hard and I go early. So no meetings in the morning, and just try to get cracking on the big things of the day and get them knocked off early, so that, as the inevitable interruptions come during the day, I can deal with them. Probably, key rule, make sure I have some fun every day. It can't all be boring. And then wrap it up at the end of the day. And the way I describe it is, sleep like your life depends on it, because it kind of does, especially as you get older.
Who has been the biggest inspiration in your life?
So it's my dad. I don't even have to think about that. I've got a massive amount of respect for him and the principles that he's lived by. He's just, he's one of those classic Englishmen in a lot of respects, very stoic, but also very optimistic. And it comes from, whenever I talk to him, I'll say, how are you doing? And his standard answer, like all parents have a standard answer, is any fitter and I'd be dangerous. And it doesn't matter.
Hilarious.
And it doesn't matter how he feels. That is it, right? So for me, I think that's just brilliant. And I sort of hope that some of his optimism rubs off on me, and the motivation he has to keep learning really motivates me. So and he taught me how to grow food as well. So there's a fair few things in there. I also love the fact that whenever I tell him about anything that I'm doing in business, which I think is kind of cool and new, he goes, "Oh yeah, we were doing that in the 70s." And he just reminds me that it's just a big cycle. Of stuff.
Well, you should ask him what they were doing in the 80s, and then you can be ahead of the game.
Oh, I think I can remember what he was doing in the 80s. So,
What is your purpose?
So my purpose is really, I think nowadays, to challenge everything and challenge everybody. And those things are really about challenging them to achieve things that they didn't think was possible, or if it's a business, that the business didn't think was possible. So, it's really trying to make people uncomfortable about saying, "Oh, it can't be done." And, my challenge will be, well, it can be done. We just haven't worked out how to do it yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually find that is a shared purpose across both business and my personal life. So, raising kids to me, has a lot of similarities in some respect. And when my kids say, "Well, that can't be done," or "I can't do that," I just have to say, "What, you can't do it?" And they know what's coming next. And it's the same in business. If we're looking at our business, or anybody's looking at their business and saying, "Well, we can't do it." Well, of course you can. Doesn't necessarily mean you should sometimes, but certainly you can achieve anything you want. You just got to design it to do that. So for me, really getting people to achieve their full potential, or getting businesses to achieve their full potential, or in fact my kids to achieve their full potential, it's the same thing.
You also have a building a career on purpose kind of attitude, and I'm interested to hear you speak more about that.
Career on purpose, is what I think is critical to everybody, and even more so today than it has been in the past. It comes from the fact that I believe our careers are simply just a story about us in a lot of respects. So, I speak to people often who might be struggling with something that's really tough. And, what I talk to them about is that, if they can achieve that thing that might be really causing them some pain, just imagine how good the story will be, because you've achieved the hard thing. And you can expand that from a career point of view of, if I'm sitting there interviewing two candidates for a role, and one person basically has this wonderful story about how they tried something and they screwed it up and it was really hard and, it was really tough, but they got there in the end, and this is how they got there, versus somebody who just comes in and says, "Oh, well, I did this and I did that and I did this and I was told to do this and I was told to do that." I know who I'm giving the job to every single time. So, we've got to put ourselves in that position where we're creating our own story, and that story then matches our career. So, to me, that is how you start building and getting momentum around your career. And, if you think about a story, you actually create or curate your story. So it's about thinking about what you want to be able to describe as what you do and how you do it. And to me, that then extends into making sure that you don't just become somebody who is able to tick a list of things, and you are able to say, "Well, this is how I did it. This is why I did it. It's not all about what I did." And that's a conversation I have still, with a lot of people, is especially if they're stuck and they're saying, "I don't understand why I'm not being progressed or promoted." And, if you put yourself in that position and say, "Okay, well, tell me, what you've got going on." And if they list off a bunch of things and it's just a list of, "Well, I did this and I did that and I did that." And you then ask, "Well, why did you do it?" or "How did you do it?" And they struggle to communicate that. That's where I think people start to get stuck. So I'm really fascinated about sort of starting to get people to think about their story. And I think that will help them work out what comes next, because that's the most important thing in a career is, what comes next. And you've got to manage that, because no matter how good your boss is, they're probably more concerned about their career than your career. Even if they tell you you're the most important, if they've got a career, that's the most important thing. So you've got to treat your career as the most important thing, and you've got to drive it. So you've got to say, well, I've got this part of my story. This chapter of my story is done. What's the next chapter? What's it going to look like? Who are the characters? What's the storyline? How's it going to lead to the chapter after that? And you build on that, rather than perhaps the old traditional model of somebody telling you to draw out a career plan or a career map or something. I think it's more important to think about it as a story.
Yeah, or just waiting to be tapped as well. Like, that's a more old-fashioned way to think about it too. But I went on a high school tour with one of my kids yesterday, and one of the things they said that they do with the middle school is they give them reflection time. And that's what you're talking about. I remember being at school and then going to uni and then just going to work and just never taking that time to think about what it was that I was enjoying or what might come next. It was just this next thing was next, without actually thinking about if that's actually what I wanted. It was just, this opportunity's come up, I'm going to try that. And what you're talking about is being more thoughtful and reflective on your whole journey, I suppose. I hate using that word, but as part of your career planning, and taking that time out and not just doing the doing all the time, because then you don't set yourself apart in a way that is going to be impactful.
Look, I think people are a lot better at it now than certainly has been in the past, because we all sort of followed that same sort of path, right? And I remember going to my maybe 10th year high school anniversary or something, and the MC sort of told everyone to stand up and then basically said, if you're an accountant, if you're a lawyer, if you're a doctor, blah, blah, blah. If you went and spent some time in London working, sit down, so just went through it all. And then basically at the end of it, out of, 250 guys or something, there was one guy standing, and he was an artist, right? And so most of us had just followed the path, right? And therefore we'd all sort of gone in the same direction. Now, I think it's, the opportunity today is for people to have a much more varied approach to this, which means, from a leadership point of view, we have to be cognizant of it and provide an environment which allows people to do different things and try different things, and mentor and coach them through that, so that our experience is used to help and develop, not to tell people this is the way you do it. And therefore, we have to be comfortable as leaders talking about the mistakes we made, what we thought was a good decision, what we thought was a bad decision, and actually help people think about their story and their journey, rather than tell them what the journey has to be.
Yeah, create it with them.
Absolutely. And I think, we'll get better, happier people, more focused on what they need to do, by giving them the opportunities to put themselves in uncomfortable positions, to put themselves in positions sometimes that they may not be ready for, and learn the lessons that we've all had to learn along the way.
Is there one question that I haven't asked you that I should have asked?
The one that comes to mind is what scares me the most at the moment, and what excites me the most.
All right.
So,
love to hear the answers to those.
What scares me the most at the moment is negativity. And, I guess this is probably me up on my high horse for 30 seconds, but, everything from politics, the economy, climate, health, everything's negative all the time at the moment. And I get it, but, I also sort of look at that and think, well, what would be wrong with trying to be a bit more positive and a little bit more optimistic? It kind of comes back to that conversation with my father, as I said, it doesn't matter what's going on. He might have just been in hospital having an operation, and you ring him and he'll still say any fitter and I'd be dangerous, right? So, if we could inject a little bit more positivity into all of our world at the moment, I don't think it would be a bad thing. So that kind of scares me a little bit. What excites me the most is that the negativity isn't winning. There's always those gems of optimism, and we all know that when you're optimistic, it makes you feel good. It makes the people around you feel good. If you're negative, you drag people down. If you're optimistic, you build them up. So for me, the opportunity is that being optimistic will actually win at the end of the day, because nobody actually likes feeling depressed and unhappy. Everybody likes to be happy. So I think we've been in a particularly negative time frame, and I think it's time to put that all behind us and be optimistic about everything we do every day. And I reckon there's nothing that can stop us.
Love it. Now, one thing that I should say before we finish up is that you're the person who actually named me the goddess of governance. I've told this story before, but obviously not with you, where you rang me and you said, I'm just calling you because you're the goddess of governance. I said, wait a minute, I need to update my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
That was
and
the
of
start.
course, being a lawyer, you then went and trademarked it.
I have trademarked it. I know. Your IP.
I have tried to come up with names for other professionals I work with, but
yes.
None of them are as good as that.
None of them have stuck quite so much.
No. I did wonder whether the goddess part of that was applicable in this day and age. But
I know. I'm just running with it.
I think why not? I mean, who's going to tell you otherwise, right? So, but I think that comes back to having a bit of fun, right?
Totally.
I mean, if you can't have a bit of fun, then life's going to be pretty boring.
Exactly.
And in all the professional side of things we do, we can be very serious and we can take it very seriously, because there are people's livelihoods at stake, and we do have to do the right thing, but the right thing can involve having a little bit of fun as well.
And I got an email yesterday actually from a mining company that we're looking to do a little bit of work with, and she goes, "Oh, I just saw your title. I can't wait to work with you."
Oh, there you go. Do I get a commission for that? Or what?
That would be nice. Let's talk offline.
Absolutely.
Thanks for your time today.
No worries. It's been a pleasure.
We're on a mission to find like-minded accountants from around Australia. If you are a purpose-led accountant, continue the conversation with us in our private Facebook group. Search for Accountants on Purpose. Join us, and together we can change the world for good, for good.